This video is brought to you by NZXT.com. Great technology, selection, and service. Hello everyone, this is Dmitry with Canucks, and after the release of the Define R5 from Fractal Design, many of our viewers have expressed their interest in seeing how it compares to the widely popular NZXT H440. Both of these are pretty much in top of the charts for silent-oriented builds, and we decided to do this R5 versus H440 showdown. Two outstanding cases if you're considering water cooling. They offer plenty of storage potential and solid build quality. Starting with the price, both cases are released at $119. That I think is competitive for what they offer. There are advantages to both cases, and we hope this video will help you narrow down your decision. So the R5 is available in black, white, and titanium gray, both in window and solid side panel options, while the H440 blends a little bit more variety into the mix with blue, red, and white, and now the Razor edition of the case with a windowed side panel only. Both the H440 and the R5 are very minimalistic, with the fractal case looking like every other Define release with a matte brushed plastic front panel, while the H440 brings a bit of a unique character into the mix. I personally like the H440 more thanks to those rounded edges and glossy or matte accents depending on color combination, but let us know which design you prefer with a comment below. The I/O ports are located up top for both. I like this location with 4 USB ports, 2 of which are USB 3, PR buttons, and your audio jacks. The power button illuminates on the R5 in an attractive and non-distracting blue, and that's the only lit up portion of the case, very subtle, while the H440 has a few extra illuminated spots. So we have the power button, the NZXT logo and the power supply shroud, and the rear I/O is also illuminated. Now notice how the H440 does not have an optical bay. This was a complaint many people had when we first released the full review, but the R5 has 2 optical bays, so that's definitely a bonus for fan controllers, bay reservoirs, and etc. The H440 is slightly taller as top cover is built to act as a sound barrier, while the R5 is slightly longer at the front. The R5 has the upper hand for front intake layout, as ventilation is on both sides with the large gap between the fan and the front panel, while the intake ports on the H440 are only on the left side, with a rounded corner on the right side that looks fantastic, but the intake suffers. Easy removable dust filters are available for both, with 3 120mm fans included on the H440 with support for 140mm as well, while only a single 140mm fan is present on the R5 with dual fan mount available. And they've done a fantastic job with getting rid of airflow barriers here at the front, utilizing a more open hard drive design. And while the H440 does not have your conventional cage design, instead they use spaced out drive caddies that are independently mounted, and I love this approach. For top airflow options, the extra top cover on the H440 allows the utilization of this space without totally sacrificing that silence element. Although the vents on the top panel are facing the left side, meaning if you are facing the side panel window, you can easily hear the fan noise. The R5 on the other hand utilizes these module vents that are inconveniently removed from the inside with difficult to reach clips, and if you decide to install an all-in-one cooler in there, you're effectively getting rid of any sound barriers. Although the ability to remove 1 or 2 of these covers for the slots that are utilized is appreciated for, build specific scenarios. And I would recommend these to stay closed for a totally silent build. The R5 can support triple 120s and 140mm fans up top, while the H440 can do triple 120s but only dual 140mm fans, so there is a bit of an advantage on the Define case with fan mount. But notice there is no dust filter, so the H440 has that slight advantage of the cover, as it will prevent from any dust from settling in. They also have very similar rear layout with flexible fan mount to accommodate for top radiator clearance. A 140mm fan is included on each, there's 7 PCI slots, and bottom dust filtration is present, for the R5 spanning the entire floor and conveniently removable from the front. And getting inside, this is where the magic happens. The main difference you see here would be the clear chamber separation, as on the H440, the power supply is hidden, so this means you have to do very little to make it look clean. Plus, all the drives are hidden behind this piece, while the R5 is more conventional, with modular drive cages, so you can remove them, reposition them, depending on your system and how you want things to look, and either case is very simple to work in. The H440 supports a total of 6 3.5-inch drives with 5 on the metal drive caddies that also support SSDs, and a single mounting slot on the floor and from the power supply, while the dual cage on the R5 can accommodate for 8 3.5 and 2.5-inch drives, both with dedicated SSD mounts as well. I love the location of those on the H440 that is revealing, you want to showcase your fast SSDs, and they're also not very difficult to wire, while the caddies on the R5 are located behind the motherboard, also an effective spot, and it's utilized well. Long GPUs are not a problem for either. The R5 with the cage in place, we have 31 centimeters of clearance, while the H440 until the drive caddy has 29 centimeters. And keep in mind that both the cages and the drive caddies can be removed to accommodate for longer GPUs. Water cooling abilities on each case are super impressive for this form factor, as efficient layout of the interior means extra flexibility for water-cooled systems. And starting with the H440, having triple 120s and dual 140mm fans both at the top and the front means a combination of 360 and 240mm radiators installed at the same time is possible. And if you do install a radiator at the front of the case, this means sacrificing on all drive caddies. While having a more conventional cage system on the R5 allows users to relocate the drive closer to the power supply to have clearance at the front, and that's exactly what I did there for my build. So you still can accommodate for water cooling without totally getting rid of your mechanical storage. And the R5 is more flexible in this way that I think appeals to water cooling more. You can even remove the optical drive cage and install your main drive cage there to have clearance for a bottom radiator, for example. And after assembly, each case looks gorgeous on the inside with really clean cable management with appropriate cutouts around the motherboard, with the H440 having a slightly better accommodation for micro ATX builds with cutouts at the bottom, while the R5 perfectly accommodates for full ATX boards just fine. Also, coming around to the back and checking out the cable management, I have to give this one to Fractal Design, as I was able to clean up everything with no hassle and look at just how flat my cables look without any problems of closing the panel. And that's a very different story with the H440. There isn't that much room behind the motherboard tray, plus the foam on the side panel restricts so much clearance, and this in turn makes it really difficult closing the panel, and you can even see the indentations in the foam from my personal build because of all the tight cables. And because of the power supply chamber, you don't really have to deal with anything, in front of the power supply, so that element of cable management on the H440 is easier, but the limited spacing between the side panel and the motherboard tray creates a more difficult overall process than on the defined R5. And a few last things to mention is exactly how silent are these cases. Well, the window on the H440 does not do a good job with noise isolation. Plus, the exhaust fans on the left side are not ideal, as you can hear fan noise regardless. If you expect a totally silent system, lower your expectations, as you have to approach this with a lower RPM fans and other silent components for this to be a truly silent case. The Define R5, however, handles sound isolation like a boss, giving you keep your modulants in place, and of course the full side panel is more effective than the window at blocking the noise. For my test system, I used the same hardware but with different cooler orientation, so this isn't exactly a perfect comparison. But the idle CPU temperatures were hovering around 32 and 35 degrees Celsius, while GPU was at 30 and 31 for the R5 and H440 respectively. At load, the CPU temperatures were just over 50 degrees Celsius and GPU slowly rising to high 70s during game time. And this effectively tells us that cooling on both cases is perfectly sufficient without adding any extra case fans aside from the dual 140mm fans on the Kraken X61. And so for conclusion, I think both of these cases really stand out and offer everything for the modern builder, be it an enthusiast editing machine or an office PC. I personally prefer the exterior design of the H440, but I also appreciate the modest looks of the R5. The lack of an optical bay on the NZXT case, however, is an excuse to choose the competition. Building inside each of these is enjoyable, but I have to give the edge to the R5 for simpler drive installation and having a less crammed interior, plus more space behind the motherboard tray for super easy cable management. But I also really love the power supply shroud on the H440 to help with chamber separation. The H440 also comes with 4 fans, while the R5 only with 2, but cooling on both is comparable and excellent, and while you have to take into account the limitations on each case regarding its silent features, I would still personally opt out for the R5 if silence is your priority. And for my own editing rig, I've gone ahead with the H440 as I wanted to utilize the top slot for the cooler, but because we have the 2 extra drive caddies on the R5, I might switch to that to accommodate for more backup drives. Now I realize there are benefits and drawbacks to each chassis, and thus one cannot be sort of titled superior or the king, so it's a matter of preference. And so let us know which case you would prefer for your specific build and priorities with a comment below. And give us a like if you enjoyed this type of content, and let us know what 2 cases should go head to head in the next showdown. And as always, we will appreciate your subscription. Make sure to check out our full reviews of the Definer 5 and the H440 here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.